Hi, and welcome to the second video on getting started with Moodle. In this video, we're going to be going over course organization, some course structure how-tos. If you're looking to start fresh with Moodle, we recommend that you check out our first video, which is on the Moodle basics, the bare necessities that you really need to know. So we're going to start by going to my course. If you don't have a sandbox course, it's a course where there are no students, or there are only test students, so there's no live marks or anything like that, no live assignments, but it gives you kind of an area to play around. There should be an option to request a sandbox if you're in our Getting Started with Moodle course. So feel free to fill that out if you'd like a sandbox course. So I'm just going to go into my my sandbox course, and it's set up the exact same as an empty course at the start of a semester. If we scroll through, we have 12 sections. We can, right now, these arrows are pointed down, showing that the sections are expanded. We can press that to close them. So the arrows pointing to the right, the sections are all squished together, and if there are any materials inside there, they would be hidden. The only section that is always expanded is that top section. And that might be a good place for a course syllabus, but we'll take a look at that in a moment. The other thing to note is on the top right, we have the Turn Editing On button. This lets us make changes to our course page. So the first kind of area that we're going to focus on is sections. There are 12 sections that come with the default course. Generally, there are 12 weeks in a course. And you're not tied to having one section per week. You can do one section per topic. You can have a section for lecture materials, a section for the lab, a section for assignments, a section for the exam. You can set up your course and arrange it in the way that makes most sense for you. I'm going to start by turning editing on, and we're going to see some icons come up. So we have this multi-directional arrow. We have this pencil icon. We have this add an activity or resource button. We have the edit options. And if we click to expand this section, we get a gear icon and we get add an activity or resource. So let's start off really basic. We have this multi-directional arrow. We'll see this on a lot of things. If you saw our last video, this is the same button that we use to arrange our courses in our preferred order on our dashboard. So I can drag section 2 up or move it. So because this is an empty section and there's nothing in it, there we go. So I can drag section 3 up. I'm going to move that back down so it goes into its proper place. So if you have a course that you taught last year and you have material in place, but you're switching around some of the order of the lessons or the lectures, you might want to just move an entire section. Here on the announcements forum, this is a resource. You see that we have the same arrow, so you can rearrange resources within a section as well. So we'll take a look at that in a moment. The next thing we have is this pencil icon. What we can do with this is if we press on that, it gives us the option to rename that section. So maybe we want to have course introduction and orientation. Whenever we finished titling our section, we can press enter, and then it gets saved, and then students will see that new title. So if you want to do like sections for labs, sections for weeks, put in the date, put in what students have, whether it's a required section or optional materials, whether it's a resource, maybe you have a librarian and all the resources from the librarian are in one section, or you have career services and all the career services resources are in one section. You can enter whatever you want for that title. And if you press on that button by mistake, you can press escape to cancel any changes and not save anything there. On the right, we have the option for edit, and this gives us a couple more options. So we have the edit section button. And what this lets us do is we can add a summary to the section. So this might be if you use learning outcomes, objectives, or like learning thresholds. You might want to have those at the top of every section, maybe an introduction, maybe you have a picture that you would like to have at the top of the section as kind of like a hook to start conversation or get students thinking about a topic in a new way. You can have that in the top of your section. You can have a list of the required things that a student has to do in a given week, or any important notices that should always be above any sort of like slides or quizzes or anything like that. So whatever you write in here is always going to be at the top of the section. So I'm going to say this text is always at the top. So whenever we save this, we'll get a look. The other thing that we have down here is restrict access. So restrict access lets you put a kind of condition on a resource. So in this case, unless a student meets a certain requirement, they're not going to be able to access the things inside of the section. So if I add a restriction, I could do a date. So I could say that unless it's August 22nd, which is tomorrow at the recording of this video, unless it's August 22nd, this section isn't available. This eye icon means that students can see that restriction. So it's going to be grayed out. They're going to see, oh, I can't click on anything in this section until August 22nd. You also have this slash icon, which means that it's going to be hidden completely. So when the eye slash through, it's completely hidden. Students won't see it unless they meet this requirement. So this August 22nd. So one way that you might use this is we set up a course where there are 2 streams of labs. So during 1 week, there's a group of students that would be doing a lab, maybe lab A, and there's another group of students and they'd be doing lab B. So they'd be going through the same course, but kind of in a different order. So in order to avoid confusion about which resources they needed and which resources they would be using in a given week, we duplicated it, the lab section, but set a restriction access based off of a group restriction, so that students that were in the first rotation would see their labs in the order that they would do them and not see the labs for the other section. And the other section would see the labs that they're doing in the order that they were doing them, but not see the sections for the other group, just to avoid some confusion. So I'm going to close that restriction, but I'm going to go save changes. So we're going to see our text. So this text is always at the top. Another useful tool over here is hide section. So if you don't want to have an automatic open or close, you might want to choose to hide a section and then unhide it, maybe before a lecture or after a lecture. So we can see that the section is grayed out. The topic title here is italicized. And if I open that up menu again, we have the option to show section. So it goes back to normal. This section is now visible for students. Otherwise, they'll get a message that it's not available. So while we have this text at the top, we're going to want to add some resources to this. So maybe we want to upload a PDF that would be our course syllabus or something like that. So I'm on a Mac, and I'm going to open up Finder, which is very similar to, if you're using a Windows computer, My Documents. So you'll bring up the My Documents window and just make sure that you can see Moodle in behind. We have our orange button that says Turn Editing Off. So that's a toggle. So we want to leave editing on. We can tell that editing's on because we have these extra icons. We have the gears and the multi-directional arrows and the pencils and the edit buttons and the add an activity or resource. So we want to make sure that editing is turned on. And I'm going to grab onto my course syllabus file that I have here, and I'm going to drag this over to Moodle. So what we can see is our add files here drop down is showing up at the top section. And if I go down to course introduction and orientation, if I drag it down to just above the add an activity or resource, we're getting that option again. So we're just going to go to the bottom of the section, and I'm going to put this up at the top of the course. So I have uploaded that, and maybe I want this above my announcements form. I want it to be the first thing that a student sees. That we can use the multi-directional arrow to reorder those. We can also use it if we want that to go into the course introduction and orientation section. I can drag that down and we can move it between sections. The only thing though is that the section has to be open, so because section 2 is collapsed, it's not letting me drag it in there. I can go into the first section, but not the second. So you might want to press open all before you move your materials around, or you might want to just make sure that the section that you're trying to move from and move to is open. So if we look at the options here, we have very similar options to what we had on our section. We have that multi-directional arrow that we were just using. We have the pencil icon. So if my file name is different than what I want this to appear in my course, or if I want to add a note, if I want to add a note like that, where it's not in the file name, so my file name in this might be course syllabus JH1010, but I want to add a note to the title, or maybe I want to say that this reading is optional in a given week, you can add that. And it's not going to update the file whenever a student downloads it. So make sure that you give like a good title. Recommend using the course code in your in the title for the files that you have, just so that a student that's in 5 courses know which course syllabus they're going to open on their computer if they're looking for a particular course syllabus. So that's a pretty good practice to be in. Under our edit options, we get a couple more than we did with the section. We can go edit settings, which will give us some more options for adding a description if we want to add to the course page. We can also move this right. So maybe we want to have a heading in a section and we want to have some optional materials, and maybe our optional materials are indented right once to create kind of a visual hierarchy. So there's this block of optional readings so that students know, okay, these are the main readings and these over here, those are the optional readings. I can worry about them whenever I have a little bit more free time. Whenever I move something right, I get the option to move it back left. I have the same hide and show options that I had before. So here I can toggle whether or not a student is able to view that. In my edit settings, I still have the restrict access options. So if I want to put that condition, like maybe I want to have a rubric for an assignment as well as some assignment instructions. And I don't want students to have access to the assignment instructions until they've completed the academic integrity tutorial. So maybe I put the restriction that you can't access this until you have completed I'm just going to put the site-wide badge, but the UPI academic integrity badge will appear in this list. And I'll leave that eye open so that students know that they need that badge, and I can have the instructions in the very top of my course, or I can add that directly to a course page. So I'm going to cancel that. If I want to add text to the course page, so I don't want to add a file, but I want to add a text, so maybe I want to have that optional readings heading that I was talking about, we can add an activity or resource. So if I press this button, add an activity or resource, I can add a label. So I'm going to press this. And what this lets me do is have a text box on the course page. So I can go optional readings. And since this is a heading, maybe I'll just highlight this all and select heading large. On our current theme, there's not a lot of distinction between the headings, but that's something that'll be fixed going forward. So I'm going to go save and return to course. I'm going to move that up. And I'm going to indent this over. So in this case, I guess the syllabus is optional. I'm going to turn editing off. So we can see we have this heading, and then the course syllabus is indented underneath that. So I'm going to turn editing back on. So if you were paying close attention, you can see that we have these editing options that we had whenever we use a discussion forum or create a post. So if you want to add like I said, if you want to have a picture that you want to be able to move around on your course page, or you want to have underneath a resource, if you want to have a link on your course page, or if you want to attach a file, you can also expand options, and you have HTML options. So if you want to copy a YouTube embed code, so I'm just going to open up a YouTube browser, and maybe I'm going to do a Pharaoh serpent chemical reaction. So this is like this old style firework. It's a pretty cool little display. So I'm going to pause the video, but I have the share options here, and we have these two pointed brackets, and if I press that, it gives me this kind of little web code, and I can just copy all this. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to say copy this. I'm going to go back to Moodle, and I have those pointed brackets again. So I'm going to press on those, and I'm going to paste that YouTube code. And what that does is it puts the video and embeds it onto my Moodle page. So if I save that, it's going to embed that video so that students don't have a link, they have a full-on video. So some things with this, it might be really good for an online course with like a welcome video where you want to have a little bit more of a, hey, I'm a real person. Or you might want to say, please check out this video, and have something that might be a little bit more attention grabbing than just a text link. One thing to take note of, though, is that students might be looking at your Moodle page on a mobile device. They might not have good internet. So you want to be really judicious with how many things that you add to a course page like this, because they don't tend to load well if a student has a weak internet connection. And if they're using the Moodle app on their phone, it pulls the offline stuff. So anything that's a link to a website or something like that tends to not really load in the Moodle app. So be judicious in the use. But I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to delete that for now. But it might serve as a cool option. Again, like you might want to have like a picture or something like that. I know that some faculty have added those kind of images to their course as well. Another thing with indenting is, if I look at this, I have two versions of a PowerPoint that I did. So I'm going to drag those over here. I can do both at the same time. And then maybe I have, because it's the same, I can indent it after that. So if you're concerned about representing your content in multiple formats, so maybe you have Word document and a PDF link available, you could indent it over just so that students know, okay, it's the same thing, but it's just available in a different format, and students get a little bit of choice over how they're going to look at your material. Another thing that we have is a page. So a page is like a label. It lets us have that that text with the images. So I'm just going to expand this again. I'm going to create that YouTube link. So we have that video, but I'm going to call this Pharaoh's serpent chemical reaction. And the rule is that you can't type while somebody's watching you, even if it's just a recording. So we're going to save that. And instead of the video, we get that link. So maybe we know that a lot of students are taking this from a location that has a bad wireless connection. So what we've done is we put the video off, so it's going to not load the entire rest of the course page while students are trying to load this video. And it's not going to try and load the video every single time that a student's going to the course page. So it's kind of like a way to make that course page load a little bit more easily for students that are going back and coming back to it. So that's something to be mindful of. So I'm just going to delete that. And as I delete that, we're going to go down. We have a recycling bin. So if we accidentally delete something Any content from the course page is deleted after 7 days. So I have a lot of things that I've deleted because I've been giving some workshops and using my sandbox course a lot. A lot of things. But here at the bottom, I have that Pharaoh's Serpent chemical reaction. I can see when it was deleted. And if I want, I can press restore, or I can delete it forever. So again, this holds back 7 days. So a lot of that material might be of some value to you if you accidentally delete an assignment. The student data shouldn't be lost. You should be able to go to the recycling bin and recover that lost data. 2 more things. So we have 12 sections. If you want more sections, or you want to get rid of some extra sections, while we have editing turned on, we have these little plus and minus options. So if I press the plus box, I'll get section 13, and if I press minus, I'll get rid of it. The limit is 52 sections per course. That's as big as they can go. If you want to have fewer than 12, you can just press the minus button, and it will get rid of them for you. One thing with turning editing on, just to be aware of, is you might see some resources, they'll say Orphan Activities. So what I'm going to do, and it's going to kind of like give it away as I set this up. So I'm going to go into section 12, and I'm going to press the minus button. So I have Orphaned Activities, section 12, that course syllabus. So it might look like this course syllabus is available to students. The link is showing up. But because it's not in a section, students will never actually see this course syllabus unless it's linked somewhere else in the course. So that orphaned section, Orphaned Activities, is kind of just letting me know that, oh, I need to press that plus button to make sure that that's in the correct spot and it's in a viewable section, or I need to move it out of this section 12 that doesn't exist anymore into a section where students can see it. And the thing with Orphaned Activities is if I turn editing off, it's not visible. So if you're importing materials from a previous version of a course, you might want to just turn editing on and go to the bottom of your course page and see if you get that Orphaned Activities thing, especially if you know that some of your later content seems to be missing from your course page. So I'm just going to press that plus button, bring back our 12 sections, and I'm just going to delete that, and we're going to get rid of it. The last thing that I want to cover for your basic kind of course organization is if you've been teaching a course and you've taught it previously, we can do a course-to-course import. So I'm going to press, we'll just show that a little bit easier. Go down to, we have the administration block on the left side. In that list, we have import. So I'm going to press import. And I'm a Moodle administrator, so I have access. I can see every course that's visible without being enrolled. So your list will probably have significantly fewer courses. But I'm going to go to another sandbox course. So maybe I have a course where I'm making a checklist. So I've selected the course. I can choose what things I want to take over. So if you're bringing everything over from a previous version of the course and you're going to just go through, read through what material's there, decide what changes you want to make. Maybe you want to bring everything over. That's pretty easy. We can press jump to final step, and they'll just move everything over from one course to the other. Alternatively, you can press next, and you can go through and pick and choose what you want to come over. So we can go through this. We have to confirm what things we want to take, what things we want to leave behind. If you miss something, you can always go back and do the import again and just bring that one thing over. But here we're going to press jump to final step. The bar fills up. It says that import's complete, continue. And all the resources that I have from that checklist course, they're all over here. So if you're teaching like a 2018 version 2019 version of a course that you taught in 2018 or something like that, you might want to use that import to quickly bring the resources that you had in your previous course over to your new course so that you can start right away. If you have any questions about organizing your course, or you want a hand setting things up, or you don't remember how to do one of these things, feel free to always reach out to us at moodle@upi.ca. We're more than happy to help. Again, you can always review these videos. And once more, we have our faculty and staff Moodle support, which has screenshot tutorials which you can go through on your own time at your own pace. So thanks again for watching, and hopefully you have a good time using Moodle.